Yes, people, and welcome back to another Offside Trap video. Now, today is a bit of a different one. We're going to be doing a pre-match analysis of Big P's team, West Ham. Me and Doc are going to be asking the questions. And Big P is going to be the subject to our abuse for the next 15, 20 minutes. Welcome, Doc, to another video. How you feeling?
Doing? I'm doing good, thank you. Yourselves? Welcome in, boys. Nice to see you both.
Not too bad. Big P, how you feeling?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. You?
Yeah, mate. Well, no, I'm not good at all, actually. This is off the back of the Chelsea-Liverpool game, so yeah, I'm not that too good. We're not here to talk about that. First subject we're going to talk about is David Moyes himself. Partly, do you think he's good enough for West Ham anymore? Do you think he should keep his job? What's the discussion around Moyes at West Ham at the minute?
I've made my opinions perfectly clear, and I thought he should have walked away after the Conference League win and got out on a high. Now, we had a good start to the season, to be fair, and it was like, oh, hang on a minute. If we can carry on like this, then he's got something going here. But since then, we've been beaten by Fulham 5-0. We've been beaten by Arsenal 6-0. Performances haven't been great across the board. Ultimately, they've offered him a new contract. So he must be doing something right within the hierarchy. For me, I'll always be thankful for what he gave the club over the last few years, the experiences that I've had over the last few years. But I do think it's time for him to sort of move on.
And Doc, coming to you quickly, with David Moyes, do you think that it's enough for him as well? Do you think he should move on?
I mean, I'm a Crystal Palace fan, so I'm the complete opposite. I think West Ham fans are absolutely deluded. I do not understand how a manager that has achieved what he's achieved at their club with the resources that he's got there, I really don't understand what more West Ham fans can ask from him. Yes, I accept the last few weeks haven't been acceptable, but I blame West Ham for that. I don't blame Moyes for that. And it does bring me on to my next point. What's really going on at West Ham, Pete? Because I just find it a little bit strange that for me personally, the uprest of the Moyes situation has coincided with the drop-off. Now, why have you found yourself in this predicament? Why has this not been done before the season started, for starters? And second of all, how can it be that the Moyes that was winning games at the beginning of the season that took you up to 6th, I believe, was you 6th at one point? Didn't have a contract on the table. Now he's lost 2 games and the fans have turned on him. Now we've got an offer on the table. Something doesn't add up for me. And I'd like to know your opinion, please.
I think ultimately when we beat over Christmas, so I'm going back to Christmas, we beat Man United, we beat Arsenal. And the contract then come out then that they were going to offer him a new contract. Now, ultimately, for me, I thought, well, we've just been spanked 5-0 by Fulham a few weeks earlier with our strongest side. To be fair to him, he's had a lot of injuries that he's had to contend with to key players as well. But I just think his style of management, his style of football just isn't what the side needs now. Do you know what I mean? We've got exciting players. You've got Paqueta, you've got Bowen, you've got Kudos, you've got Alvarez. Do you know what I mean? And we're just not playing to their strengths. We can get the ball down and knock it about, but we're not doing that. It's like we've got to sit back, hit on the counter-attack. Now, against the bigger sides, I understand that. But when you're playing sides like Fulham, we should be the one dominating the possession and the ball. Do you know what I mean? And it's just not happening. And we're watching this week in, week out.
Yeah.
Sixth in the Premier League, though. 6th in the Premier League playing that way. Surely, you know, at the end of the day,
it was
Champions
working.
League football playing that way, would you not accept that?
Yeah, it was working. But now we're, scraping the barrel to be in the top 10 at the minute? Tomorrow's game is a massive game for West Ham Football Club. And what I mean by that is we need 3 points. We're 8 without a win. David Moyes has never beaten Brentford.
That's exactly what I was going to bring to. That is a perfect transition, BP. You told me this stat before we recorded this video. Reiterate the point again that you said about David Moyes.
David Moyes, out of 48 clubs that he's faced as a Premier League manager, has never beaten Brentford in the 5 times that he's faced them. That is a stat, and you wouldn't believe it, but we're 8 unbeaten. We're 8 beaten without winning. He's never beaten them in 5 in the Premier League, and we've never lost. We haven't lost our last 5 Premier League games at home on a Monday night. So tomorrow, theoretically, should be a good game.
Now, moving on slightly from West Ham, just a minute. How much of a threat do you see Brentford being? I mean, especially with Tony back as well. We've seen the challenge he's given other opponents so far since his return. Are you feeling the same sort of nervousness going into an opposition like Brentford?
I think they've always got to be nervous when they got a front line like they have now. Ivan Toney, for me, is probably one of the best strikers in the Premier League at the minute, and that's coming off an 8-month ban. They've got Mbermo back tomorrow as well from the African Cup of Nations, so that makes them stronger. I watched Brentford a few times, especially their game against Liverpool. I didn't think they were out of it. Do you know what I mean? They're a bit of a funny side, aren't they? I know they're struggling a little bit, but they're a bit of a funny side. Like, if they turn up, they can actually put a show on. Do you know what I mean? And just brush you aside. But on the other hand, if we get a foothold in the game and we can dominate possession, then maybe we can go on to win it 2 or 3-0.
Has Tony coming back made such a big effect, though?
I think so.
I understand. I understand a buzz around the place. I understand the threat is there and teams are going to be a bit more cautious. But since he's returned, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but since he's returned, Brentford have actually slipped down the table, not gone up the table.
I think it's a stalemate with Brentford, isn't it? They've been there or thereabouts where they are. Now, ultimately, he's come in and added goals to their game because they struggle to score goals. With someone like Tony, you're always going to struggle not to score him in the side. Now, for me, they never had that replacement for Tony. They never went out and bought anyone to sort of replace his goals. Now, people might say strikers are a dying breed, and it's very hard to come by a striker. You look at the teams in the Premier League and how many of us need strikers. I definitely think it's changed their fortunes a little bit, and the buzz around him. Do you know what I mean? It does worry me a little bit tomorrow. Give him half a chance, he's burying it, isn't he?
I only asked this question because as of late, the last, rewind maybe a week or 2 weeks, I was basically being told by the footballing world that Crystal Palace were in a relegation battle. And yet whenever I put Brentford in that conversation, I was told no. And yet, fast forward a week or so, we are now above Brentford in the league. So I just don't understand why Brentford get the accolades that people give them with regards to, like what a threat they are and how teams. It's like teams fear Brentford, yet their league status doesn't show a team that should be feared.
I totally agree with you. I think Brentford are in a relegation battle. It only takes for Luton, Forest, Everton to pick up some points, and they could be in the right doghouse. Now, for me, you know what? It surprises me that Thomas Frank's come under no pressure whatsoever. You look at Sean Dyche, bit of pressure coming around there. Maybe the 10 points has sort of helped him out a little bit. Nunes has Forest already sacked a manager, brought Nunes in. But there's no talk of Thomas Frank and under pressure and things like that. Do you know what I mean? Look at Palace, Roy Hodgson. He's obviously he stepped down under health, medical, or whatever, but they've still changed their manager. Now, ultimately, Thomas Frank's come under zero pressure, and that's what surprised me because I do think that they are in a relegation battle.
I think if Brentford hypothetically got relegated this season, with where they were in the league when Tony returned, I think that costs the manager his job. I think the manager would have to go.
I think the big thing with Brentford, in my opinion, is I think they've been such a professional club since coming up to the Premier League. Like they've handled stuff well. They've stuck with the same person who's succeeded in their aspirations of keeping them up. You know, they haven't gone down. A lot of people did have them to go down after they got promoted into the Premier League. And Thomas Frank said, no, that's not happening. We're staying in the Premier League and this is how it's going to be. So I think the owners of Brentford Football Club have seen Thomas Frank and gone, you know what? We have to stick with him. He's given us all this time of being in the Premier League that we've wanted. Why should we change that? You know, and I do 100% agree that if they do go down, then they do need to. I think bigger clubs are going to be looking at Thomas Frank because I do think he's up there with the managers in the league. But I do alternatively think that Brentford are the sort of club that can beat anyone on their day. And I don't think I can say that like with a Wolves or with a Fulham, I can't see them. Like if I look against them at a fixture against City, I don't see them picking up points, which I know obviously Wolves did beat City earlier in the season, which is mental. But like I've always seen Brentford. It may be a Chelsea thing because we've lost twice to them this season, so it may just be a Chelsea thing from me. But I've always seen Brentford as a serious threat against any club. So that's probably one of the main things why I asked this sort of thing.
Yeah. I'm generally surprised that he's come under zero pressure. But that might, as you say, it's a Brentford thing, and maybe their owners are patient.
I just think like something I just picked up on what Bill just said then, and I think this is the prime example of football where if your name or your face fits, people seem to cut you a bit of slack. It's like we've just touched upon them slipping down the league, and now, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but my mindset was Brentford were gearing up for the return of Tony to kick them on, and ultimately the only way is up, and if they can be where they were before his return, when Superman returns, they're gonna kick on. And like I said, if they carry on slipping down that table the way they have, and if West Ham actually turn them over tomorrow, then they are really, really much amongst that relegation battle. And if they do get relegated, how ironic it is that we're talking about a manager being sacked for not doing a good enough job for Brentford to keep him up, and then in the same breath of fresh air talking about him potentially being a target for bigger clubs. It's just irony, isn't it, in a way,
Yeah. Moving back on to West Ham, obviously you did highlight the fact that there have been some injuries to key players throughout the season that Moyes has had to deal with so far. Is there any major injuries ahead of this fixture with Brentford tomorrow night?
Not that I'm aware of, Bill. Obviously, Kelvin Phillips is out suspended. That's not an injury, suspension.
That's a result.
Yeah, we could see the return of Lucas Paqueta tomorrow night, which will be an absolute massive bonus if we can get him back and out on that pitch tomorrow night. If he does return, I'd start him straight away because I do think we need the 3 points. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. Bowen seems to be fit. Antonio is back and fit. He's now got options. Do you know what I mean? Do you go with Kudus, Paqueta, Bowen? Do you go with James Ward-Prowse in between Kudus and Paqueta and play Bowen down the middle? He's now got his options back. Do you know what I mean? And for me, Paqueta's 100% on that team sheet.
Just two things you've just said there that I think you've just brought me on to two questions I wanted to ask you. Paqueta's been heavily linked with Manchester City over the last 6 to 12 months. Talk is now coming back out that hypothetically that they will be potentially coming back in for him again. I know that obviously this betting scandal is sort of looming, but let's just put that to the side. If City come in for him, there's talk of Calvin Phillips now, Leeds, potentially if they come up after their great result at the weekend, Friday, stroke weekend, maybe wanting to take him back to Leeds. Would you, as a West Ham player, as a West Ham fan, sorry, and I know that you've not seen much of him in a West Ham shirt, but would you want to see Calvin Phillips come into West Ham as part of that deal, or would you be more than happy to take the money and step aside and let Leeds take him back there if he is to go?
It's a tough one, Doc, because I think Kelvin Phillips is a great player. I just think his injustice at Man City and the lack of game time at Man City has sort of cost him a little bit. And what I mean by that is maybe he has put on a yard of weight, or he has lost that bit of pace. Do you know what I mean? The Premier League's always it's a fast moving league, isn't it? So you've got to sort of keep up with it. And unfortunately for him, he didn't get the game time at Man City. Now, would I want to see him a part of the Paqueta deal? No, not at all, because I don't think that he would be worth the money that Man City would want. Now, ultimately, Paqueta's only going to go Man City if Bernardo Silva leaves in the summer. That's already been said. But he also has an 85 million release clause in the summer. So I would take the 85 million. Do I sign Kelvin Phillips? It's a tough one because he hasn't had a great start, has he? Let's be fair. He's made 2 mistakes, led to 2 goals and got sent off. But ultimately, I don't think that he's a bad player. So, look, I would go to Man City and say 30 million for Kelvin Phillips. Because if we do it as a swap deal, what are you going to get for Paqueta? Do you know what I mean? And I think we need to replace him as well. So,
see, I see it the other way. I see it the other way. If I see you getting more money, more player for money in a swap deal, because they're going to be parting with less cash than if you try to buy him. That's why I asked the question.
Yeah.
I think if you go in and try and buy him, they could hypothetically ask for, say, 40, 50 million. I think if you take him as part of the deal, I think you could quite easily say, we'll take Phillips and 50 mil.
Yeah, I think I don't want to judge him after 3 games, but ultimately, if he carries on the way he's going, I wouldn't sign him at all. But it's bad because you don't become a bad player overnight, do you? Do you know what I mean? That's what I can't get my head around. So
he hasn't. But he has. It's not like he hasn't played for a couple of weeks. Like he has been missing for years, like months and months, even like a year. Like City have given him no chance.
He's had more starts for his country than he has in a Manchester City shirt.
Can I ask you an honest question? I want to genuinely hear if you can you name me another player where the manager has come out and apologized for not playing them?
No, I can't.
I don't think I've ever seen that.
I can. Arteta done it with Nketiah when Nketiah was being heavily linked with Palace and the new deal was put on the table. Arteta sort of said, you know, but again, I think, do I believe what he said? No. But did he say it? Yes. He sort of said, you know, that's my fault. He deserves more playing time. I should have given him more playing time, and I will give him more playing time if he stays. But yeah. I think that was because A, they were desperate to keep him at the time. B, they wasn't looking outside of the box of going to get anyone else. And C, I think it was just a way of trying to give him a bit of confidence. But the answer is, yeah, Arteta did do something similar.
For me, though, I don't think Pep Guardiola come out and said sorry for not playing me. It was more about the comments of him being fat, weren't it?
Right, absolutely. Yeah. But, and I don't even think that was sincere.
Nah,
100% not. I think if Pep says
it was all political, wasn't it? Yeah.
I think that was just his way of, you know, he was asked a question. He didn't want to. See, I'm a strong believer of managers saying, I'm not answering that question when it's a private matter. But when it's in that situation and when he's put in that spotlight, had he have said he's not answering that question, it would come across and it would have been twisted that he was sort of sticking by the words. So he basically was forced into a corner to apologise. But at the end of the day, if you're overweight, you're overweight. As a footballer.
That's the thing, isn't it? Like I rated Calvin Phillips at Leeds. I think everyone did. Like he seemed like a decent midfielder. And when we saw him go to Man City, I don't know about other fans, but for me, I was like, that's a good squad sort of signing for them, because say if they don't use Rodri, that they can always chuck him in. But even in that number 6, like that defensive role, they've been playing Kovacic or they've been playing Nunes, who are both sort of box to box ball carrying midfielders. So it just goes to show how Guardiola really didn't like him.
Well, Jamie Redknapp has openly said recently, in a podcast himself, to Michael Richards, where they've had a heated, I like to call it a heated debate as opposed to an argument, where Jamie Redknapp is openly saying that Phillips is a better passer of the ball than Rodri. And he generally believes it. He's not saying it for banter. You can tell by his reaction. He generally believes that with regards to the passing of a football, Phillips is better than Rodri. I don't believe that myself. I think that's ludicrous. But that's still, a big compliment from a player that could pass a ball like Jamie Redknapp could. So he obviously sees something in Phillips.
Yeah.
For me, I think we've got to be looking at when Leeds fans call him the Yorkshire Pirlo, right? Now, ultimately, for me, we're talking about a Kelvin Phillips at Leeds that was put in the same bracket as a Declan Rice.
But what do you call him?
Huh?
What do you call him?
Kelvin Phillips.
The Yorkshire
Pudding.
That's right. The Yorkshire pudding.
But ultimately, this guy, the same midfielder, was put in the same category as Declan Rice. Do you know what I mean? And is he as good as he's as good as Declan Rice, or he's even some people saying he was better than Declan Rice because Declan didn't get his move straight away. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's also being held as debatably in the top 3 best English players in the country in his position.
Yeah,
I do think that Manu is now threatening that a little bit. But yeah, this guy is not a bad footballer. I just think it's a perfect example of these players when they're such good players and when they're held at such high regard at the club that they're at. The next move that they make is crucial. And for me, Phillips got it wrong. He should never have gone to City. He was never going to get the game time at City. And if he would have gone to a club, say, like West Ham then, I think we'd be having a different conversation now. I think we'd be talking about a player that would have 70, 80, maybe 100 appearances under his belt for the club, and probably celebrating milestones.
Let me ask you a question. Both of you, a quick question. So we're talking about moving to Man City and it not quite working out. Now, do you think if Paqueta moves, that he gets the game time that he would deserve if they were to lose Bernardo Silva in the summer?
I would automatically say yes, because De Bruyne is showing he's becoming a bit of an injury player.
Well, there's big talk of De Bruyne going as well now. That for the first time ever, I've read today that 100 mil could tempt City to let De Bruyne go.
Yeah.
I think that's ludicrous. I think that's absolutely ludicrous. I think if Liverpool are letting Salah go for hypothetically 150, I can't believe that they're prepared to accept 100 mil for De Bruyne. But that's the point, isn't it? I think if De Bruyne's going and Bernardo Silva's going, the core of that midfield over the last 2 years, the ones that helped them win the treble, are all on their way out. And I do see him being a perfect player that can come in and, strengthen that team.
Yeah. Let's finally, I've got a question, and Doc, you can answer that question as well. For West Ham, Pete, if you could bring back one past player that has played for your club to play in their prime for the end of this to the end of this season, who would it be and why?
Tough question, because I've got so many I like, but the one I'm going to stick for, he is a legend. He was controversial, Mr. Paolo Di Canio. And I'll tell you why. The passion that he brought when he played, the goals that he scored, the goals that he created. Could you imagine Paqueta, Bowen, Kudus, and Di Canio?
Sorry, that is not a sentence I thought I'd be hearing on this show.
It makes the hairs on the back of my neck stand up. That would be class. And I'd give him captaincy till the end of the season as well. I'll say, there you go, Paolo.
On that note, I think we should end it here. If you want to see our actual predictions to this, it is on our Saturday show, which you can go and see previous Saturday and our predictions there. Doc, is there any last comments before we leave on this one?
Good luck, West Ham.
Cheers, Doc. We need it.
Big P, any final comments?
No, thank you for watching. All the best.
Don't forget to like and subscribe, turn the notification bell on, because we will be posting a lot more of these sorts of videos as well. And we will see you in the next one. Peace out.